Yeah. So fine, welcome to the training. Fine. So before I start off with the training, I'll just give you a brief background of what Selenium is and how it is evolving, where it is going. Fine. So initially when Selenium came up in the market, there were three components. One was known as RC, one is known as GRID, IDE and GRID. Okay. Now I hope many of you must have seen IDE. Okay, IDE is something which only works in Mozilla. It is primarily a record and run tool. Okay, every automation tool has this feature. You take up UFT, you take up Selenium, you take up any tool. Okay, right? It will have a record and run feature available. All right, and um, basically record and run looks good, but practically we don't work with it. All right. So IDE was a tool which could be used by anyone. Okay, any person can pick up IDE, use it to automate their websites and testing processes and all everything. But the primary disadvantage is that IDE only works on Mozilla. Okay, it will not work on any other browser. Okay, when you do the testing, it also generates no reports. Alright, if you have a small application to test for just 1 or 2 pages, you can use IDE. But if you have a bigger application, then using IDE is not at all recommended. Okay, so that's why people started using Selenium RC. Now this was way back somewhere in 2007, when I also worked on for the first time on Selenium RC. Okay, now RC, what it did was it could work on multiple browsers. Okay, it could generate reports. But tester had to learn a programming language. Okay, you had as a tester you had to learn Java, okay, or C Sharp, right? PHP, Python. Okay, so, not Python, but there were many other languages with which RC was available. It got very famous with Java because Java is open source. Fine. And Selenium GRID, what it used to do is that it used to distribute the test cases parallelly if you want to run the test cases parallelly across multiple systems so that you can save time or test your application on different operating systems as well. You can use Selenium GRID. Okay, but things changed. Okay, there were various drawbacks in RC. Right, people thought that fine, this needs to be improved. All right, and then somewhere in 2011. Okay, WebDriver came up. I think it was August 2011 when I first saw it. Okay, WebDriver came up and it completely changed the world. It completely changed everything. Okay, and it was too good. All the drawbacks for RC were removed. All right, but don't think that there was some modification done and RC was converted to WebDriver. No, this was not done. This is not the case. WebDriver is a completely, Selenium WebDriver is a completely separate tool itself than RC. Both are independent of each other. If you know WebDriver, when you look at RC code, you will not be able to understand it. Okay, so all the drawbacks and all, I'll not discuss those drawbacks right now because many of you will not be able to understand. Okay, so all those drawbacks in RC were removed and WebDriver it came up. IDE, it is still there but not used. Okay, it's not recommended to be used. All right, and GRID has modified to GRID 2. Okay, right now after 2-3 years in 2013, I guess. Okay, support for mobile was also introduced. Fine in WebDriver, but later it was removed because there were many issues coming up. It was removed. And if you have to do mobile-based testing, if you have to test your mobile, if you have to test your website on mobile, okay, or if you want to test your app and you want to automate your app on mobile, a new tool has come up which is based on Selenium itself. Okay, if you learn Selenium, you can learn it. The tool is known as Appium. It's got very famous. All right. So, but you have to learn Selenium first. It's built on top of Selenium. Okay, so that's why mobile was removed and all the features of mobile were put into this tool known as Appium. Okay, right. And we'll not be covering Appium in this course. That's a different thing. It's a world in itself. Okay, we'll be covering Selenium, but I'm just telling you for your information. Right. Now, to start with, the first thing is that, right, automating a website. I hope you know what automation is, right? Everybody is a manual tester out there almost. Okay, right. Why do we automate? You must also be knowing to save time and to save cost. Okay, right. And Selenium as a tool can only automate web-based applications, only web-based applications which are opening in a browser. Okay, if you want to test a desktop application or anything, it cannot be done. You can use UFT for that. Okay, but UFT is always obviously a paid tool. Fine. So we don't use Selenium for that. Right, and we use Selenium only for web-based testing. Now the primary thing is we have to learn Java language. Okay, you cannot run away from Java. There is no looking back. Okay, right. Just a minute, guys. My voice is not audible. Everybody can hear me. Check your speakers. Okay, right. So now moving ahead, right? I was talking about Java language. Okay, you cannot skip Java. It is the backbone. The complete API of Selenium is made in Java, and it's not actually Java. It's actually the concepts of object-oriented programming which you need to learn. Fine, you don't directly jump over to Selenium, and that's what we'll be starting with. The first thing is that you need to install JDK on your machine. Okay, because everybody has a 64-bit machine these days, right? So make sure that you have installed JDK. Fine, go to google.com and just type out there, download JDK. Fine, and you will get the first link. Okay, Java is now by Oracle. So you go over here and you download JDK. Fine. Okay, and depending on your operating system, okay, like whether it is 64-bit, 32-bit, you can download, install it. Fine. The next thing is you need to install Eclipse. Okay, Eclipse, the editor for Java language. Fine, most of you must have installed it, right? So you'll have to be a little patient with me. Fine. So, and make sure you install Eclipse Luna. Okay, that's the thing, because people just download any Eclipse and later on they face issues with Selenium. Okay, Luna Eclipse, download this one, right? Go to this link and hold on. Yeah, download it from this link. I'll give you the link on the chat as well. Okay, so make sure you are having Eclipse Luna. Fine. So after you have downloaded it, right, it comes as a bundle. Fine. Like on my machine, right, you don't use Juno Manish, you use Eclipse Luna, right? In my machine, it's out here, Eclipse shortcut. Fine. So you just need to run the exe file and it will start. You don't need to install it. It comes as a bundle. Fine. And you start it and you will get a screen like this. This is known as a workspace launcher. Okay. Workspace launcher will have a path, right? The path where you will be storing all the Java files. Okay. All the projects and all which you have in the training. Okay, so for example, our batch is October weekend 2015. Fine, and you click on OK. It will start in some time. Look, don't use Mars. Please use this Luna. I have seen many people facing issues. Okay, fine. So let Eclipse start up. So here you go. It's started up. Fine, and this is the welcome screen. You can close it. And basically, we'll be dealing with 3 parts in Eclipse. Fine. The central part is the one in which you'll be doing the coding. You'll be storing the projects here, and you'll be seeing the output at the bottom. Okay, right. Now, why do I say that object-oriented programming is important, everything is so important, right? Look, if you actually go to the official website of Selenium, seleniumhq.org, if you go over here, fine, the first thing is written Selenium automates browsers. It's only for web-based automation, right? And if you go to the downloads link where you can download Selenium, fine, you will see for Java language, okay, there is a Java doc link. This is the official documentation for Selenium, right? If you click on it, you'll get something like this, which you will not be able to understand. It is all object oriented in concept. Okay, this documentation, if you know the object oriented programming concepts, you can actually get hold of this documentation very easily. But if you're not a person who, if you just know Java, like you just know any other language, you will not be able to understand it, right? So at times people come to us with the background that they know Java, but they actually don't know the inner concepts, and that makes them a little confused, right? So the most important thing is learning Java. So I'll create a first Java project. Okay, right click in the package explorer section, say new project. Okay, select the Java project from here and click next and name the project day 1 and finish. Look, don't worry, don't try to do parallelly with me. Many times people, they try to do parallelly with me. Don't do it. I am recording the session. You will be given the recorded video. Okay, that will help you a lot. Fine. So this is day 1. Fine. And this is the project. Okay, inside it you will see a source folder and GRE system library. Okay, this GRE system library is actually Java which is installed in your system. Okay, inside the source folder we will be doing all the coding. Fine. Also, if you right click on the project, you will get a lot of options. We'll be using these options. Okay, one of the important options which we'll be using a lot is properties. Fine, the properties of the project. Here there are various properties which we'll be looking at, but just right now come to just remember that you right click on the project, you get the project properties which we will be using later on. Right, for example, this is the path of the project on the hard drive. Okay, so if you, for example, if you go on to the path, right, you will see the source folder. Source folder is also visible inside Eclipse. The other folders and files are not visible. Right, we'll talk about them, just be with me. Fine, so in source folder, suppose I make a new Java file. Okay, new Java file is also known as class. Fine, right click, new class, right, and I'll call it as, say, welcome. Fine, I'll check on this checkbox, public static void main, and this will finish and it will generate some code. Let me increase the font size, just a minute. Just a minute. Right, so the thing is, you will see something like this generated: public class welcome, public static void main. Main is the static function. Rather, if you have studied any other language, main is the starting function almost in all the languages. The control comes up to this function when you run the program for the first time. What static is and all that stuff, okay, I'm going to talk about it after some time. When I'm talking about object-oriented programming concepts, I'll talk about it. Fine. So out here, if I write system.out.println hello Selenium, so this will print. Okay, system.out.println is the command to print something in Java. Right. So when you run it and see it's printing hello Selenium, you can run it from this small icon on the top, or you can right click on the Java file, say run as Java application. Fine. So I am assuming in this programming, in this class, that you at least know what int is. Right. At least this level I am expecting. Right. You know what string is. Fine. You know what a for loop is, what a while loop is. Fine. You know what functions are. Okay, so these few things I want that this is the minimum prerequisite. Fine. After that, the concept of object-oriented programming starts, which I'm going to teach you. Fine. So if you run this file, it's printing hello Selenium. Okay. System.out.println is the command in Java to print something. Right. Now I had actually uh, created this source folder. Okay, this source folder is present inside the day one class, inside the day one project. Okay, inside that the Java file welcome.java is there. You can also open it physically, right? It opens in a WordPad or Notepad. Fine. So uh, what I want to say is that you can also access the files and all which you are creating in Eclipse directly. Okay. Now moving ahead, fine. Moving ahead, if I go back over here, you will see a bin folder. Okay. Inside the bin folder, you will see welcome.class file. Every Java file is converted to a class file, and all the class files are inside the bin folder. This class file is equivalent to an exe file. You can put this class file on any other system, any other operating system, anyone, and execute it. It will execute the program and print hello Selenium. Okay, you will not be able to read anything in this class file. It's not readable. Okay, right. If I Is there any shortcut key to run the program? Yes, it can be, which I never tried actually. Okay, when you select run as Java application C, Alt Shift X J is the shortcut. Okay, but I never try it. Fine. So if I suppose make a new Java file, fine. I call that Java file as say basics. Fine. With the main function and print Selenium basics. If I run this, you will see that in the bin folder, basics.class file is also generated. So every Java file is getting converted to a class file. And this is the class file which we deliver to the client. Okay, right? Fine. Now, what we do is actually we bundle up all the class files together in a project into a single file. Okay, you cannot just have so many class files lying in a project and then if you have to deliver all these class files to your client. Okay, what you do is that you put them in a single file. That file is known as a jar file. Okay, a jar file is nothing but it's a collection of class files, right, which you can deliver to your client. All right. For example, this is GRE system library. This is the Java which was installed on your machine. Okay, right. What is it? If you expand it, it will have lot of jar files. Fine. So it's nothing but collection of jar files. When you install Java, these jar files they come onto your system. And these jar files, they have got some predefined utilities which you can use. Okay, every jar file, if you expand, will have lot of classes. Nobody knows how many classes are there. Okay, nobody actually, don't need to remember, but there are a lot of classes in these jar files. Hello, sir. Okay, which you can use. Pardon, anybody having any questions? So I have a question that looks like that there are different jar files are there, and it means that they are all these jar files contain predefined functions. Yes, I'm going to talk about it. Just 1 minute, I'll tell you. Yeah. So, so all these jar files, they have, oh, sorry, all these classes. Okay, these classes you have to use, and rather you do use them. Fine. For example, if I write over here system.out.println new date. Okay, what is new doing out here? Just forget about it. Fine. Don't. I'll come over to this. I just want to show you something. If I just write system.out.println new date, and if I run it, this prints the current date, time zone, year, everything, month. Fine. So what is date? Okay, date is an internal class. Okay, this is actually present in one of the jar file. You see that this is date.class file. Okay, I just have used this date.class file over here. Fine. And I got to know the current date. So actually I never did any coding or something. I utilized a predefined utility and I printed something out here. Okay, but I was knowing that there is a date class present. And this is exactly what happens in Selenium. Everything is built in. In Selenium also, everything is built in. You have to just learn the functionality, that what does what. Okay, it's not that you have to invent your own things, right? Everything is inbuilt. You need to know about it. But to know about it, you need to learn OOPS, object-oriented programming. Fine. Okay. Now the first thing which you need to do is that, yes, we need to know about the functions and all, right? Yeah, the classes and all. Right. So the first thing which you need to do is that when working with Selenium, you need to download the Selenium jar files and include them in the project so that you can use the features of the Selenium jar files. Right now, I only have the Java jar file with me. Okay, I don't have Selenium jar files with me. Okay, I have to download the Selenium jar files. For that, for downloading that, you need to go to the official website of Selenium. Fine, click on the download link and you will have the Java version available. You click on the download link over here and it will get downloaded. Fine. Once you have downloaded it, fine. You will have a folder like this coming up. Okay, right. And inside it, you will have two jar files out here. And under the library folder, you will have many jar files. So all these jar files, they have to be included inside Eclipse. And then only your project will become Selenium enabled. Okay, right. So these are two jar files over here and other ones are in lib. Actually, you only need this jar file. You don't need the sources jar file. This is actually the source code of Selenium. Selenium is open source, so they also distribute the source code. You don't need that actually. Okay, so you need this. This is very important jar and also the jars inside lib. So what you need to do is that you need to right click on your project, go to the properties. Okay, and you will see Java build path option, third from the top, Java build path. Go there and you will see 4 tabs. Fine. Go inside the libraries tab. Okay. Click on add external jars and then select the Java 2.47 jar. Okay, the main one, and also the jars inside lib. Okay, also include those jars. Fine. Click on OK and you will have the referenced libraries section generated. Okay. Under that, the jars will be present. If you don't have this reference library section generated, make sure that you are inside the Java view. At times, sometimes people are inside the Java EE view, and what happens is that the jar files, they come up like this. Okay, make sure you are in Java view. You can click on this small icon known as Open Perspective, right, and select the perspective Java from here and make sure you are in the Java view. Okay, so since we have included the jar files of Java and Selenium in this project, so you can work with Selenium, right? For example, if I write over here, new Firefox driver. Firefox driver is a class in Selenium which is responsible to test on Firefox browser. Okay, so if I just write this, you will see that a blank Firefox window will open up. Fine. So you did nothing. It's no rocket science. You just used a predefined class. Okay, and that's what we need to learn in this tool. Right, and that's what this training is all about. You can also learn Selenium yourself. Right. The only thing is when you learn it through some training, you get a jump start. Okay, that's the only difference. Otherwise, we also have learned it ourselves only. Okay, we didn't take any training or something. Okay, so now moving ahead, fine. Uh, let's start with object-oriented programming, right? Because everything is inbuilt, but to understand that, you need to understand object-oriented programming. Fine. So anybody with any questions till now? Anybody with any questions? No questions? Okay, right. So I will actually create a new class, right? Fine, and I'll call it as, say, computer. Okay, what is the question, Anup? Okay, this I will talk about later on, import statements and all. I'll talk about them. Right, just be with me. Whatever coding I have done right now, maybe a few things you might not be able to understand, but this was just to open up your eyes. This was just to make you understand few things, but as we proceed, you'll come to know. Fine. So this is a simple class known as computer. All right. Now, what do you do with the computer? What are the properties of a computer, right? For example, I'll say that string company, the company which this computer belongs to, int price, the price of the computer, right? And if I make a new class, right? If I run it, if it doesn't work, hold on, Anand. I'll come over to all those things. Just be with me. Okay, just be with me. Test computer and right over here. What I'm going to do is that I'm going to do something known as create the object of the computer class. Fine. You create the object of the computer class by typing new computer. When you type this, the object of computer class is made in the memory. Okay. And two parameters, the company and price parameters, are inside that object. Fine. Now you can also create multiple objects of this class. You can write new computer 2 times. So what will happen is that in the memory, the object is created 2 times. 2 objects are created with company and price. But what is the utility of this? Okay, you cannot access the objects directly. You have to have handles to those objects. Okay, you have to write like this: computer C1 equals to new computer. Computer C2 equals to new computer. So what will happen is that C1 will point towards this and C2 will point towards this. Okay, C1 will point towards the first object and C2 will point towards the second object. Alright, with C1 and C2, you can actually go and change the state of the objects. Right, what you can do is, you can write over here C1 dot company is say A. C1 dot price is 100 and C2 dot company is B and C2 dot price is 200. Right. So what will happen is that, okay, this will become, the company will become A and this company will become B. Right. So every object will have its own copy of these variables. If I print C1 dot company and C2 dot company, and if I run this code, it will print A and B. Okay. Right. You can move the references in Java as well. I can write C1 equals to C2. So what will happen? C1 and C2 are object references. They point towards those objects. So if I write C1 equals to C2, C1 will not point here. C1 will start pointing over here. Now with C1 and C2 both, you can change the state of this object. Okay. If I print this again, this time it will print B and B. Because C1 and C2 both are pointing towards the same object. If on the next line, if I write C1 dot name or company is company C, so for both of them, it will be changed. It is very logical and very easy to understand. So basically, what is an object? Okay. Alright, object is something which holds the variables or the functionality of the class inside it. And you can access the object with the object reference. Fine, this is known as, this is equal to, the stuff which is on the right hand side of this equal to is known as the object. And on the left hand side, this is the object reference. Okay, right, I can also write like this, say computer C3 equals to null. Many of you must have seen these lines, right? This means that C3 is not pointing towards any object. Okay, and maybe in the next line I can write C3 is equal to new computer. So C3 will start pointing towards an object. So you should not confuse object with object references. Okay, references, they can move from one location to another. Alright, fine. And that's exactly what we do in Selenium. Fine. We create the objects of inbuilt classes. That's it. Okay, and we use the functions in them. But for example, hold on. I'll create a new class known as Selenium underscore basics. Fine. And everything is inbuilt. Okay. In Selenium, everything is inbuilt. If you go to the documentation of Selenium, okay, if you go to the Java docs, fine. These on the left hand side, these are all the classes within Selenium. Okay, these are all the classes. Fine. And hold on. You don't need to remember all of them. Okay, nobody does that. Okay, just a minute. Just a minute. Right. So these are the important driver classes in Selenium. Okay. For example, Chrome driver, as the name suggests, it's for Chrome. Edge driver is a new one for Edge. Event firing driver, I'll tell you what this does. Hold on. Firefox driver class is for Firefox. HTML unit driver. iDriver, Internet Explorer driver. Mariner driver, like this is again a new one, right? Opera driver. Remote WebDriver. Remote WebDriver is used for Selenium GRID. Okay, when you have to run the test cases parallelly, we use remote WebDriver. Safari driver. Okay, so these are the driver classes, but things are not stable out here. Safari driver is not stable. Opera driver is not stable. Okay, so primarily we use Firefox, IE, and Chrome, which are good enough to work right now with Selenium. Okay. Right. So we create the objects of these inbuilt driver classes and then we work on these browsers. Alright. So if you look at Firefox driver, for example, if I create the object, earlier also I did the same thing. I just write new Firefox driver and we'll create the object of Firefox class, right? Firefox driver class. So you have to import it. Okay, it will give you an error. You move the mouse over the error, you will get the import option. You need to import it, right? And when you import it and run the program, you will see that a blank Firefox opens up. Fine. Okay. If you write like this, say Firefox driver f1 equals to new Firefox driver, you give object reference to this object just by creating the object. Okay, the browser is opening. With F1 you can control the object. Okay, F1 you put dot, you will see all the functions which are available after you create the object of this class. For example, a function known as a very common one, get. You type the URL, okay, it will go to that particular website. Fine. When you run it, it will open browser and simply navigate to the website. Okay, you see that? Fine. But please note, when you use get, the protocol is very important. Okay. Don't forget to mention the protocol. If you don't, it's not QTP. Okay, in QTP you can do that. If I run this now, it will simply throw me an exception. Okay, it will open the browser and it will simply throw the exception. Okay, you see that? So the protocol is important. Fine. So now similarly, there are drivers for Chrome, drivers for IE. You create the objects of those driver classes and you call the functions on them. But yes, right, before I do that, I have to go back and make you explain the object-oriented programming concepts in detail. So over here in this test computer class, okay, we just created the object of this computer class, right? And we initialized the variables. Fine. Okay, right. So for example, if there is one more variable, right? Say int inbuilt hard drive, right? So right over here we know that in test computer, when I create the object of the computer class, if I write c1 dot inbuilt hard drive equals to 1, every computer I know will have one hard drive. Okay, every computer which I know will have one. Obviously, all the computers, they have one hard drives, right? Personal PCs. So,
So are you
it
extending
is,
class?
pardon?
Are you extending the class?
No, I'm not extending the class. I'm not doing anything, right? Okay. So I know that every computer has one hard drive. Okay. Hold on. There's a question. We can use any class in the, yes. The classes in the source folder, they can use each other. And that's what I'm doing in test computer. I'm using the computer class. Okay. So if I write c1.inbuilt hard drive, right, equals to 1 for every object, it doesn't make sense. Obviously, I'll have to write this line again and again, and I know that it's going to be 1. Right. Okay. Yes, Kiran, for every project you need to import these jar files. Yes. All right. So c1.inbuilt jar files and c2.inbuilt jar files. I'll have to always initialize that. And I know that it's always going to be 1. Right. So every object over here, right, all the objects which I create, fine, will have this property inbuilt hard drive initiated to 1. So what we do is that instead of initializing it here, we make it static. Okay, many of you must have seen static in Java. So static is something which is common for all the objects. It's not the part of the object. Fine. It is common for all the objects. Okay. All the objects, this static will lie somewhere over here in the memory. And all the objects can access static stuff. It will be common. And you can access the static stuff without actually creating the object of the class. You can simply write computer dot inbuilt hard drive equals to 1. So directly by the name of the class, you can access the static stuff. You don't need to create the object of the class. Okay, so there are basically 2 types of things in a class, right? Static and non-static. Company and price, both of them are non-static variables. Okay, you can access them by creating the object of this class. But this is static, so you can directly access them. Hold on. Yes, static can be directly accessed. Right. Similarly, as I had created Firefox driver object over here, with this object I can access non-static, right? And if I write Firefox drivers dot, you will see lot of static properties. You can access them directly. Okay, right? Fine. So how we access them, what we do, okay, we'll study that. Okay.